Hello, I'm Julie Gideon. This is number 0750, the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder, and it comes to you right now.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
Now, it's time for an eclectic mix of interviews and some of the oddest news stories you'll ever hear. It's the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder.
Hey there, hi there, ho there! Peter Anthony Holder here with you, and yes, this is indeed another edition of the Stuff File program, number 0750. And coming up on this edition of the Stuff File program, you'll meet JD. He's a collector. He has over 2,500 copies of the movie Titanic on VHS, and he's hoping to reach 1 million copies. The obvious question is, why?
Why? Have you ever seen the 1997 smash hit Titanic by James Cameron? Oh yeah, well it is a smash hit, 11 Academy Awards, and baby, they ain't lying. Well, they did sell 25 million units, so I'm thinking 1 million be a little possible. Playing as the rebuilt Titanic out of Titanic on VHS. Could you imagine?
Madam Maven is the author of the humorous book Death Maven, having everyday conversations about death and dying. Why a humorous book on death?
We need to reframe that whole concept. And this was my way of grabbing death by the scruff of the neck, sitting it down with a glass of scotch and saying, what is it about you scythe-wielding, chain-rattling hooligan? Would you stop scaring people? I just wanted to make sure that people knew that it's part of life. And it seems like it's taboo, but there seems to be a more death-positive movement towards having those conversations.
Stuart Nulman is in with another edition of Book Banter.
Hi, I'm Stuart Nulman, and Book Banter welcomes 2024 with 5 books to look out for in the new year. So get your comfy chair, cup of hot chocolate, and reading robe ready. I'll tell you what's coming up soon on the Stuff File program.
And there's lots and lots of Stuff File news, and of course, an idiot of the day. The guest slater, the person who told you this was show number 0750, was Julie Gideon, who is a writer, editor, and writing coach. You can find out more about her by going to her website at eloquence.online. That's eloquence.online, and of course you will find the link to her website by going to the page for this show, which Julie just mentioned. See how it all goes around in full circle? Thank you very much, Julie, for doing the guest slate on this edition of the Stuff File program, a show that is listener-supported, fan-funded radio that depends on you for our success. Join us at patreon.com to help make this show an even bigger and better radio experience. Well, let's get right to the stuff. First of all, Happy New Year to everyone in our audience. This is the first show of the brand new year. I hope that your 2024 is a prosperous one. Let's get to the stories right now, shall we? 53-year-old Dale Martin of Morgantown, West Virginia, has been charged with attempted murder after allegedly shooting at one of his relatives in their home. According to the criminal complaint, the incident started when Martin got irate at the unnamed victim and his girlfriend because they'd eaten all the tacos. The victim and his girlfriend told police Martin got a rifle from his bedroom, and when the victim tried to run upstairs, Martin shot into the spot where he had been standing. While police were at the scene, another relative arrived and told the officers that Martin had called him saying, I just shot at the victim. Don't think I won't get the 12 gauge and blow his bleeping head off. Martin is being held on $100,000 bond. Buddy. A taco run would have been cheaper and easier. That's a much simpler way to conflict resolution. I mean, I Googled and found 67 Taco Bells in West Virginia. In fact, I found 3 of them in Morgantown, where you live. One of them is open until 3 a.m., and all of them deliver.
Yo quiero Taco Bell.
An unnamed 22-year-old man from Taiwan was detained on December the 5th at the international airport in Bangkok after he was found to be transporting 2 Asian small-clawed otters and a prairie dog. The man had the animals stuffed into 3 separate socks and taped into his boxer shorts. Security officers became suspicious about the large bulge below the man's waistband. I think it would have been even more suspicious if the bulge were moving. They believed he purchased them at a market in the city. The animals were taken to the Wildlife Conservation Office. The smuggler was arrested. Said a Thai Customs Department spokesperson, "We will catch anyone who tries to take animals on planes." You know, that sounds like a challenge. Yeah. A debit card left behind at the scene of a fatal shooting helped police in Gary, Indiana track down and arrest a man suspected of killing a fellow customer at a grocery store. The violence was caught on the store's surveillance camera, in which the 2 men in their 40s get into a fight near the checkout counter. You know, I haven't seen the video, but I'm willing to bet that one of these guys had too many items in their basket for the line that they were in. Yeah. Anyway, where was I? And I forgot. What town was this in?
Gary, Indiana, Gary, Indiana, Gary, Indiana.
Are you sure it was Gary, Indiana?
Not Louisiana, Paris, France, New York, or Rome.
Oh yeah, that's right. Anyway, on the surveillance video, one man is seen pulling out a gun and shooting the other, a 48-year-old man. The shooter then picks up his items, walks around the victim's body, and exits the store. Witnesses told police the suspect forgot his debit card at the cash register. Officers were able to identify him as a 44-year-old, and he was arrested while walking not far from the grocery store. Wow. Gary, Indiana sounds like a dangerous place.
Gary, Indiana, that's the town that knew me when.
Gee, I don't think I want to raise kids there.
Gary, Indiana, Gary, Indiana, Gary, Indiana, that's the town that knew me when.
Well, at least they all seem happy. They're singing. And finally, in this section of Stuff File News, before we get to our first guest here in this edition of the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder, on December 21st at 1 a.m., 20-year-old Jesse James Harden Gott was arrested. The Rome, Georgia man was arrested for hunting.
Shh, be very, very quiet. I'm hunting rabbits.
No, he wasn't hunting rabbits at 1 a.m. He was hunting deer with a pistol from his car. The deer was in a wooded area near the road. Gott was charged with hunting from a motor vehicle, hunting at night, and hunting from a public road. Officials did not specify if the deer was struck by Gott's gunfire. You know what's disturbing about all of this? Not the time of day or the use of a pistol. It's the fact that he was charged with hunting from a motor vehicle. Apparently, there is a law for this, which means this must happen regularly. Yeah. Anyway, let's get to our first guest here in this edition of the Stuff File program, shall we? There's a guy in Florida known as J.D. who really likes the movie Titanic. He likes it so much that he has amassed a collection of about 2,500 copies of the 1997 film on VHS, and he is aiming for 1 million. J.D. joins us via Zoom from Florida. Hi, J.D.
Hey, how's it going?
Just tickety-boo. Thanks very much for being on the program with us. So you have all of these VHS copies. Why?
Why? Have you ever seen the 1997 smash hit Titanic by James Cameron?
Several times.
Ooh. Oh, yeah. Well, it is a smash hit, 11 Academy Awards, and baby, they ain't lying.
Okay, so when did you start this collection, and why do you think you're going to get to 1 million? Because, you know, VHSs aren't exactly as popular as they once were. Are there even 1 million of them out there?
Well, they did sell 25 million units, so I'm thinking 1 million be a little possible.
Okay, so when you get this 1 million, what then? What will you do with them?
Well, our plan is to rebuild Titanic out of Titanic on VHS. Could you imagine?
I guess I can. Yes, I can. Okay, so you have almost 2,500 right now. How did you amass the 2,500? Where did you find them?
Well, I started making videos online and people liked what I was doing. So I opened a P.O. box and I just started getting tons and tons of mail, all filled with Titanic on VHS. And we've opened over 600 boxes on our channel, all filled with T on V. That's Titanic on VHS.
When did you start this collection?
September 1st, 1998, Take the Voyage Home. That's when Titanic came out on VHS, and that's when we got our very first copy. But we didn't start going heavy into all the collecting until about 2012, and then it really took off around 2020.
Okay, so now I'm assuming, we no longer have the video stores out there that we used to have. And I would assume that a lot of the stuff that the video stores had in their inventory is gone somewhere, maybe even in a warehouse. Have you received these videos from individual people, or have you received some of them in bulk?
We do have a lot of bulk. The biggest package we have so far is 55 copies. But yes, mostly individuals go out and hunt for Titanic on VHS for us at their local thrift stores or flea markets, and we just collect them all. We're trying to collect them all!
And when you got the 55 in bulk, where did they come from? Was it from an outlet, or did another individual have those?
I believe they were all thrifted, so, people look all over for us, and it's really cool.
Have you reached out to the studio that produced this movie? The video supplier that originally sent them out? Have you reached out to any of these companies to see if you could find mass copies of it in bulk?
I'm playing chess right now, so I'm kind of waiting for them to contact me, if you know what I mean. I'm ready for it. I have all the space in the world to get 1 million copies of Titanic on VHS.
Okay, so you do have a bit of notoriety. You have the website, you have TikTok, you have articles that are written about you. So surely the powers that be, maybe even Mr. Cameron himself, are aware of your journey and the fact that you want to collect all these videos. Has anybody of importance reached out to you to help you in your cause?
Oh, no heavy hitters, but, we do have a lot of support from the community, from the fans, and that's pretty much all we need right now to help us, just kickstart to get at least, a few thousand.
Okay, so, again, you got 2,500. Dare I ask, are they all in English? Or are you looking for video copies of the movie from all over the world?
Yes, most are in English, but we do accept international copies. We have a handful of internationals, but not very many. And I know there's tons out there.
So where do you display all of these?
So in my house, I do have a dedicated Titanic kingdom, a Titanic room, if you will. And I have all the copies just stacked on the walls. It's just a Titanic kingdom up in that thing. What?
Okay, so you have this kingdom. Again, right now, you've only got about 2,500. So when you get closer to 1 million, heck, when you get to 100,000, I would assume your place is going to be a little cramped.
We might have to build a house at a Titanic on VHS, if you know what I mean. We are looking into storage units or potential warehouses to store all the Titanic on VHS, but we're not quite there yet.
I know this is a very altruistic idea, and I'm with you on that, but there are some people out there that are, shall we say, nefarious. I would assume that a lot of them are sealed, but are you concerned that you might get, dare I say, just the box?
Just the box? Just the box? We do check all the copies of Titanic on VHS to make sure they're official. And you know what I mean. I gotta have that real deal, baby. And so far, yes, they are all official.
Well, that's good. That was my concern. Now, I understand your day job. You are an editor.
Oh, yeah.
So I am assuming that you have no loss for looking for a VHS machine. Because, I actually happen to have not one, not two, but 3 VHS machines in my house. But by that token, I'm also a bit of a dinosaur. So I don't know a lot of people with a lot of VHSs around, and I would assume as time goes on, you'll know less and less. So how many VHSs do you actually have, the physical machines?
We do have about 6 machines, and they're all plugged in to various TVs. So we're constantly playing Titanic on VHS in this house.
How many times have you seen it?
Oh, we watch it every day, so it's got to be up there, baby!
You said we. Besides yourself, who is involved in this?
Jack Dawson. I do have a collection of Jack Dawson dolls, and, they are the light of my world.
Okay, I've seen pictures of the dolls. Explain the dolls to me, please.
Well, back in the day, we didn't really have a face reveal, so we didn't have our face on the channel, so I needed an icon, and I chose Jack Dawson, the coolest guy from Titanic on VHS. And oh yes, we took our time to build the perfect Jack Dawson and took them all across the United States of America searching for Titanic.
So I know you haven't heard from Jim Cameron, but have you reached out or tried to reach out to Leonardo DiCaprio himself?
I have not done that yet. I'm mostly just looking for Titanic on VHS.
Okay. So when you get all these millions, and you do anticipate that you will get the million, first of all, when do you anticipate that will happen?
I think by this time next year, I will be sitting with $1 million under my belt.
And dare I say, if you're not at that time?
There is no plan B. This is plan A. This is plan T. Plan Titanic, and we will get there.
Okay, so when you do get there, then what?
And we rebuild Titanic, edit Titanic on VHS, and set sails to the stars.
Do you have family and friends who are along for the ride on this idea, or is this just a one-man band?
My family is deeply concerned. But I said, don't worry about a thing, baby. I got Titanic on VHS on my side.
How old are you when you first saw the movie, by the way?
I was 6 years old and saw it in the theater.
What was it about Titanic that drew you in so much?
James Cameron, Jack Dawson, Bill Paxton, Celine Dion, Captain Smith. Are you kidding me? There's so much to love about Titanic, and oh, it's so glorious on VHS.
Do you have a second favorite movie? Or is this Titanic and Titanic only?
There's other movies.
So Titanic is it then, is what you're saying?
Titanic. Oh yeah, I love it.
Well, they've made 25 million copies, so like you say, getting 1 million, it's not necessarily impossible. It may be slightly improbable, but I do not doubt you, my friend. I do not doubt you. If you say you can do it...
Oh, thank you.
If you say you can do it, I think you will. Now, even though you haven't reached the 1 million yet, you do have almost 2,500 copies. So have you decided, or at any time, will you decide to reach out to, say, some people like the Guinness World Book of Records to authenticate the numbers you have and maybe be the record holder? Because I'm assuming that there's nobody else out there collecting Titanic VHS copies.
Well, I have reached out to Guinness, and they unfortunately said I can't be a part of the world record. I guess it's not competition-based and a few other factors, but I did reach out to Ripley's, and they will accept me, and I am going to be in the next book.
Well, that's great. That's great. Now, again, since it is a somewhat outdated technology as far as VHS, you have no desire to collect them on, say, compact disc?
DVD. CD? I don't think so. Blu-ray? No. 4K? No. VHS? Yes.
Wow. Okay. So VHS it is. I gotta ask off the bat, are you always so happy?
When Titanic's involved, how can you not be?
Well, you do know the ending, right?
Oh yeah, Jack Dawson makes it to America. Oh, whoa! My man!
How do you feel about, because one of my favorite parts of the movie, I only refer to him as Propeller Guy. You know the guy, right?
I know the guy.
How do you feel about Propeller Guy?
Propeller Guy? That's no Jack Dawson. That's not even Captain Smith or James Cameron or Captain Smith.
So you don't care about Propeller Guy is what you're saying?
Well, it's no Jack Dawson.
Okay. Well, again, you're at 2,500 copies or thereabouts. In 6 months or so, can we reach base again and see how much you've collected at that time?
Oh, yeah. It's probably going to be impressive.
Well, it's impressive now.
Oh, yeah. It's a lot of Titanic.
It's a lot of Titanic. JD, thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us. By the way, if anybody wants to send you a VHS copy of Titanic, I understand there's a P.O. box that they can send it to. Can I mention the P.O. box?
Oh, yes, please.
It's P.O. Box 5355, Largo, Florida, 33779. Correct?
Oh, that's it.
JD, continued success in your quest to have 1 million copies of Titanic on VHS, and thank you very much for being on the program with us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
That's JD, whom I'm guessing has had a lot of coffee. Again, if you would like to send him a copy of Titanic on VHS, you can mail it directly to his address. Once again, it's P.O. Box 5355, Largo, Florida, 33779. That's P.O. Box 5355, Largo, Florida, 33779. You're listening to the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder.
There's still more guests, more news, and an idiot of the day coming your way on the Stuff File program. Stay tuned. The Stuff File program is a listener-supported, fan-funded radio show that depends on you for our success. Join us at patreon.com to help make this show an even bigger and better radio experience. Sign up and find out about our rewards program. Being a patron doesn't have to be a long-term commitment. There's absolutely no obligation. You could join today and end whenever you'd like. But the time we have your support would be so greatly appreciated. We'd also love to hear your thoughts about the show and even your ideas for rewards. Join us for the ride. Join us at patreon.com/The Stuff File program. Choosy mothers choose the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder. If your mother didn't choose it for you, well, I guess she just doesn't love you.
And still to come in the program, we'll talk about death. Plus, Stuart Nulman is along with another edition of Book Banter. We have an idiot of the day coming your way a little later on, and much more stuff right here, right now. After purchasing a meatball sandwich for his nephew, 45-year-old James Leach poured Visine all over the food, which was later partially consumed by his relative. Leach was at a market near his Pinellas Park, Florida home when he asked an employee for a bottle of Visine due to having dry eyes. Upon securing the Visine, Leach allegedly opened a container of food and proceeded to pour the eye drop solution all over the meatball sandwich inside. When the worker declared that the liquid could hurt someone, Leach reportedly replied that it only would cause the victim to soil himself and puke his brains out. And trust me, he didn't use the word soil. Visine's active ingredient, tetrahydrozoline hydrochloride, can actually be lethal if ingested. The market employee who described Leach as a regular customer said the suspect had issues with his nephew and declared that he hated his kin. Leach and the victim reside together and have a long history of domestic-related issues. Cops have answered several prior calls for service at the pair's home. After receiving a 911 call from the market, police reviewed store security footage, which clearly showed Leach dousing the meatball sandwich with Visine. When police arrived at Leach's home, he declined to answer questions and requested a lawyer. The victim said he had only consumed a small portion of the sandwich before cops showed up. While medical help was summoned for the victim, he ultimately refused treatment. Leach was charged with the poisoning of food or water, which is a felony. A judge has ordered Leach, who pleaded not guilty, to have no contact with the victim. Leach's rap sheet includes convictions for improper exhibition of a firearm and resisting or obstructing police without violence. Okay, here's a word of advice, you Leach. If you're going to commit the crime of getting your nephew to literally spill his guts, then don't act like a typical Bond villain by spilling your guts to a stranger with your nefarious plan, especially in a place that has surveillance cameras where we can all actually see you commit the crime.
Visine, it gets the red out.
Yeah, it might get the red out, but it can't get your nephew out. Transportation Security Administration agents at checkpoints at LaGuardia Airport in New York found a loaded diaper. It thankfully wasn't on a baby, but in a passenger's carry-on, and the load was 17 live 9mm pistol shells wrapped in the nappy. The unnamed passenger from Arkansas, who was headed to Chicago, said he didn't know they were there and suggested his girlfriend must have put them there. Port Authority police cited him for unlawful possession of ammunition, but it wasn't mentioned whether he made his flight. Although I'm guessing probably not, since they likely needed to do a very thorough search, if you know what I mean, for the 9mm pistol. I'm also guessing that two different scenarios are probably true. One, that this guy is lying, and by throwing his girlfriend under the bus and saying that she must have put the diaper with the pistol shells there, means that his relationship is most likely over. Or two, if she did indeed put the nappy with the ammo in his bag, then his relationship is most likely over. And finally, in this section of Stuff File News, before we get to our next guest here in this edition of the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder, deputies in Polk County, Florida, said a man faces charges after he was accused of walking into an unlocked apartment and stealing vodka and orange juice. According to police, the man, later identified as Toby Foster, entered into an apartment around 5:30 a.m. and made off with a bottle of Svedka vodka and a bottle of Florida's natural orange juice. The victim told deputies that the door used by the suspect is a secondary door and they don't often use it, and they had no idea it was unlocked. Detectives say he tried to open the door of the apartment across the hall, but it was locked, and he left. The total value of the theft was just over $35. Foster turned himself in after a surveillance video was posted on social media. He was charged with burglary of a dwelling and petty theft. So, let me get this straight. He tried one door across the hall, but it was locked. So, he went to another door that was unlocked. He could have broken into the first door to steal vodka and orange juice if he just had, a screwdriver. Anyway, let's get to our next guest here in this edition of the Stuff File program. Madam Maven has spent decades researching the subject of death. Her first job at age 18 was in a long-term care facility tending to the elderly after they passed away. She has put together a humorous book called Death Maven, having everyday conversations about death and dying. She joins us via Zoom from Calgary. Hello.
Hello. Hi. How are you, Peter?
Just tickety-boo. Thanks very much for being on the program with us. The very fact that you've put together what I've already just said is a humorous book, this must have some eyebrows raised because, unfortunately, death is not something that people are willing to talk about, and certainly in a lighthearted way.
Precisely. And that's exactly why I wrote the book. I think that we need to reframe that whole concept. And this was my way, Peter, of grabbing death by the scruff of the neck, sitting it down with a glass of scotch and saying, what is it about you scythe-wielding, chain-rattling hooligan? Would you stop scaring people? And I just wanted to make sure that people knew that it's part of life. And it seems like it's taboo, but there seems to be a more death-positive movement towards having those conversations. And so really the book is about exploring all kinds of different aspects, as you've already seen, and allowing people the curiosity of what happens in different cultures around the world, what happens at different industries around death, and really to, I guess, to be honest, to try to have my readers desensitized to the conversation so that they're able to respond to it and not react to it. When you don't have a conversation and when you don't have an ability to talk about it is when you're operating on old systems, old triggers, and you react. There's no response. And I wanted them to have enough information to respond and to be okay with it.
What was the aha moment?
That's a long answer to your question.
No, not at all. But what was the aha moment for you? When did you decide, A, I need to write this book, and B, what was the process of just starting it? Because again, it's a very delicate issue, and you've got to tackle it with a certain amount of sensitivity. but not too much, because sometimes people get overly sensitive about the whole concept of death. So what was the aha moment for you?
The first aha moment was actually working at 18 with the elderly, washing their bodies and taking them to the morgue. That was my first realization, like, this is it. This is the way we end up. And then, of course, during the course of my adult growing up years, just exposed to different people, different scenarios, death in hospitals, death around the world, how different cultures approached it. And it was just something that I thought that needed to be discussed. So the book actually began formulating in my brain early part of this year. And my way of working with content was putting little ideas on sticky notes. So actually my book was created on a wall with yellow sticky notes, and I just put the different ideas in silos. And it seemed like it just came together beautifully in terms of some of the humorous things that people do, all the lighthearted things. There's certainly enough things that cause us to fear death, but being able to look at it from an idea of humorous obituaries, funny stories, what people actually look at as being important in their life, a legacy letter, having fun with sort of having the last word in their legacy letter of what's important to them. And so it was more of a lighthearted approach, not all of the discussion around sort of, for example, cancer care, but what happens afterwards. And I think there's a lightheartedness, and it's amazing that people that are close to death are more relaxed about talking about it than you would think. Here's the thing, with sometimes when there is no more cure, and sometimes when there is no hope of recovery, and sometimes when death is sort of the only thing that's going to happen, when there is no more cure, that is when the healing begins.
One of the things you talk about is deciphering the language of death. What exactly do you mean by that?
Sure. Well, there's an author that I've been reading. That's her expertise. And so just to back up the bus a little bit here, the book is not so much me giving that this is the language of death, but rather giving people resources and giving people lots of books. And it's more like a resource guide to other books and other resources that are out there. So, for example, if someone who is on their in their last weeks of life start, talking to people and saying, I want to go home. Well, of course, that's a real sign that they're ready to pass on to the other side. It's not that they want to go home to their physical house, but they want to go home to another different kind of home. And there's lots of different things that, lots of ways that is described in the book that I reference in my resource guide.
Do you still find that there are a lot of people who are skittish about that idea? And I bring that up because I'm someone who has done my pre-arrange for my own funeral. I did that 25 years ago. It's already paid for. I always like to say I'm on the layaway plan. So it's already paid for. But whenever I broach the subject to somebody, they kind of cringe. It's like, ooh, I don't want to talk about that.
Well, again, the idea of the book, and good for you, by the way, you and I are two people. I bought and paid for mine ages ago as well. So good for you for being proactive, because that really takes the pressure off the people that are left to work with what you've laid out. So good for you. I think that with North America, especially, we're such a culture that is death avoiding, that the medical system can fix everything. And we are not allowed to think about death because death is a failure and death is something that they don't ever want to talk about, which is why I grab death by the scruff of the neck and sit the idiot down and say, stop scaring people. Like, I don't know why people don't talk about it. It's almost as though if you talk about it, it's going to happen soon. But that's not the case at all. So I don't have an answer to that question. I think everybody is different, but our culture does not like it. Because it means a failure, it means that there's a loss, and but I'm hoping that that's changing now with the death positive conversations that are more and more in the media and online.
When people ask me, why did you bother getting your prearranged done so soon, so early in your life? And I said, because if I don't have to think about dying, then I can go on with living.
Bingo. Bingo, bango, bongo. Right on. Boom. I could high five you right now. Exactly.
So how is your book being received?
with mixed reviews. Certainly anyone that's been looking at it so far is, of course, my husband loves it. Of course he would. He has to, we kind of are together. But I think for the most part, it's being received fairly well. It's still brand new out in the market. And so, ask me this time next year and I'll be able to give you a better idea. But I think selling it in a way of having a nice conversation, like I said, the funny obituaries is a section that people just howl at. And it's an opportunity for people's personalities to really shine through and their eccentricities to really shine through. And again, it's your last word. And to your point, when you've got that whole prearranged stuff set aside and done, you can go on with living. And so often worrying about death keeps us from living our best lives and being our best selves. And death is robbing us of living. And I just wanted people to just understand that and to just stop it and just go on living. And death is just a boogeyman. It doesn't exist. We make up stories all the time. And that's one story that I'm choosing to replace in my life. And it's certainly not the boogeyman idea. It's something different. I haven't decided what that is yet. But death does not have the right to rob me of my life right now, of having lived and of having an amazing life right now. Death does not have that right.
Do you think
I didn't give the dude permission to do that?
Do you think that people have a different attitude toward death depending upon how religious or non-religious they might be?
It seems that way. For example, there is a wonderful documentary by the National Film Board of Canada. And it was put out a number of years ago, probably 10, maybe 12 years ago, called Grief Walker, Grief Walker, Grief Walker. And it is written from an Indigenous perspective. They have a very holistic view of what that process looks like, and that is it's part of life. And the gentleman who takes us through the journey, it's really beautifully done, very well done. In terms of the culture of, and I have to be really careful here, but there are some religions that absolutely believe in the devil and hell. And no wonder those people don't want to die. I mean, I wouldn't want to die with that mindset either. And that's why I'm saying everybody makes up their own stories. So it just depends. I know the Indigenous perspective is one that I really like because it's holistic, it's real, it's gentle, and it's just part of the way we are on the planet, just part of the journey.
Well, it's an important chat to have with anyone, young or old, and I'm glad that you've written this book. The book is called Death Maven, Having Everyday Conversations About Death and Dying. Thank you very, very much for taking the time to be on the program with us.
You're welcome. Nice to talk with you. All the best.
Madam Maven, author of Death Maven, Having Everyday Conversations About Death and Dying. You can go to my website at thestuffile.com to the What's On page for this show, which is show number 0750, and you'll find links to Madam Maven's site, plus links to either Amazon.com or Amazon.ca, where you can order her book directly. You're listening to the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holden.
Got something for the mailbag? Drop Peter a line. He'd love to hear from you. Send your email to mailbag@thestuffile.com. And remember, stuff is spelled S-T-U-P-H. That's mailbag@thestuffile.com. Or catch up with him on Twitter or Facebook. There's more Stuff File coming your way in just a few moments.
Michael Liebling is the author of The Serial Killer's Son Takes a Wife. It's a page-turning thriller. You say you've read other serial killer novels? Oh, as Michael will tell you, not like this one.
It's not like any serial killer novel you've read before. It really goes behind the scenes. So when I say he takes a wife, you've got to imagine what it's like to be the offspring of somebody who's murdered multiple people. So how do you live with yourself after that? And you were just a kid when it all happened. If you fall in love, how do you tell the woman you love your dad was a serial killer? And how would she react? So the title, it's not entirely clear, but as you get into it, it will become very clear.
The Serial Killer's Son Takes a Wife. It's a recipe for mystery with a scoop of humor and a sprinkle of horror. The Serial Killer's Son Takes a Wife. Available now at Amazon and wherever you buy books.
Latitude 47 degrees 14 minutes north. Longitude 84 degrees 39 minutes west. Location Montreal, Canada. This is the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder. It's time to crack a spine. The Stuff File presents Book Banter with Stuart Nulman. Once again, here's Peter Anthony Holder.
And here he is once again for a brand new year, MMXXIV, Stuart Nulman. Hello, Stu.
Hi, Peter. Well, Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you too, sir.
Yeah, can you believe this is our 34th year doing Book Banter?
Wow.
Can you believe this?
Wow, that is a lot of time, isn't it?
Yes, I think they should give us some sort of recognition. Well, maybe next year when we hit 35.
Actually, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Anyway, since it's a brand new year, I thought that we should talk about some of the books that you anticipate that will be coming out this year that you're eager to see. So, in other words, a preview of what you are hoping will be on the shelves, or well, you know what's going to be on the shelves, but the ones that you're most eager about. So, do you have a list of those books?
Yes, I have 5 books. I'm doing some research. I got my reading robe on, so I'm ready to go. Remember I told you about the reading robe a couple of months ago?
Yes, I remember that. Yes.
Yes, and it's very comfortable, and it really sets the mood when you're ready to read a good book, put it that way. So I got the reading robe already. So get ready for 5 books that I look forward to, and you should look forward to, coming up this year in 2024. First of all, we got a memoir here by Salman Rushdie, and it's called Knopf. And if you remember back in 2022, in the fall of 2022, well, the summer of 2022, when he was about to do a literary event and he got attacked by a knife-wielding assailant.
Yes, of course.
And I think it affected vision in one eye. Well, this book is an account of that incident and how that incident, it affected him and how he rose above what could have been a life-threatening and a career-threatening attack. So, put it this way, Salman Rushdie has been through a lot throughout his writing career, and he still rises above it. He's still standing and still writing. But this should be quite a compelling memoir about one event that could have taken his life away.
Exactly. I hope he sends a signed copy to his assailant in jail.
Yeah. It's like happy reading, behind bars. You're not so unfortunate victim, but yeah, just so to say, what you tried to do, you failed and failed big.
When is that one coming out?
Well, it's going to be published by Knopf Canada, and it's coming out in April.
In April, also, that's not too far away.
Not at all.
Excellent. So, what's your second one on the list?
Well, Erik Larson, who's written a series of history books, just exploring some of the not too well-known aspects of history. He did books about the sinking of the Lusitania, did about Holly Crippen, who was a notorious murderer in Edwardian England, and also about the harrowing days of the early Winston Churchill administration in the spring and summer of 1940. His latest book, which is bound to be another major critically acclaimed bestseller, is called The Demon of Unrest. Now, this book is a Civil War book, but it deals with a certain period of time between November 1860, when Abraham Lincoln was elected president of the United States, and April 1861, with the bombing of Fort Sumter that precipitated the Civil War. So this very critical period in American history that forever changed the U.S. and also made it almost like a forever divided country is explored in this latest historical epic by Erik Larson.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's going to be the way if he tackles this subject, like he tackled his other subjects and his other bestsellers, this is going to be quite the historical read.
Okay, so again, the book is called and is by, and also when is it coming out?
Well, The Demon of Unrest, it's by Erik Larson. It's going to be published by Crown Publishing. And this is also coming out in April.
April seems to be a busy month already.
Oh, yes.
So what's book number 3?
Well, this one is called, this is from James Patterson, The Human Writing Machine, but it's not an Alex Cross mystery. It's not another one of his collaborative efforts of thrillers or mysteries. This is another one of his nonfiction dalliances. It's called The Secret Lives of Booksellers and Librarians. He's a one-man publishing industry, but this time Patterson takes a look at the people who make books their lives, and also a study into the business of books. But the people who run the libraries and who sell the books, and it's their job to basically make books interesting to their customers or to their library members. So this is a long overdue tribute to the book industry, to the people who sell the books, who recommend the books, from a man whose titles have been seen in a lot of bookstores and a lot of libraries.
What an interesting love letter from a best-selling author.
Yeah, and he can do nonfiction very well. I mean, I've read most of his nonfiction work, and he does a great job. So I'm looking forward, as a book critic myself and a book lover, how he pays tribute to these two groups of people who make the book industry possible.
So this book again is called
The Secret Lives of Booksellers and Librarians. It's by James Patterson. It's going to be published by Little Brown. And guess what, Peter? It's also coming out in April.
Wow. Okay. I'm almost afraid to ask when book 4 is coming out, but we'll get there now.
Okay, it's RuPaul. This is the man, the person who's a superstar in the world of drag. He's a one-person industry. I mean, look, his drag races are huge rating successes, and he's a pop culture icon. I mean, he showed that being a drag queen, it's interesting. It could be exciting. It could be entertaining without the the fear, without the judgment. He makes it all possible. And finally, RuPaul is putting out his memoirs, and it's called The House of Hidden Meanings. So we're going to get probably a multi-layered memoir by RuPaul when you read this. And he's a fascinating person. I mean, this guy knows. He's sort of like, how can I say? Well, anyways, he's a one-person industry. He's a phenomenon. You want to know how he did it all, how it all came to be. You're going to get it all in this book, The House of Hidden Meanings.
And it's published by, and when does it come out?
It's published by Day Street Books, and it's coming out in March.
Ah, okay. Excellent.
That's a change.
And we have one more, I believe, our 5th book. What's that title, and when's it coming out?
Well, this is it for those who like a good mystery on a cold winter's night. It's called The Search Party by Hannah Rochelle. It's a mystery about a family that takes a camping trip, but it's a camping trip gone very wrong. Gone very wrong. I mean, we're talking about family secrets, tragedy. I wouldn't say like Deliverance. Let's not get there. But this doesn't take place in the mountains of Georgia. So let's be out front with that. But this is if you like a good mystery and a good thriller to keep you warm and engaged, when you're reading it during the winter. This book, The Search Party, is going to be the one for you. Excellent.
So I'm assuming that even though you haven't gotten your hands on it yet because it's not out yet, you don't expect anybody to be squealing like a pig.
No, or hear that dueling banjos music.
Okay.
But it's called The Search Party by Hannah Rochelle. It's gonna be published by Atria Books, and it's coming out this month.
Oh, a January release.
Yeah, so you don't have to wait very long.
Excellent. So that's 5 books that you're anticipating their release this year. Let's quickly go through the list of them again so that our listeners can just jot them down if they haven't already done so.
Okay, first one is Knopf by Salman Rushdie. It's going to be published by Knopf Canada, and it's coming out in April. The next one is The Demon of Unrest by Erik Larson. It's going to be published by Crown Publishing, and it's also coming out in April. Then there's The Secret Lives of Booksellers and Librarians by James Patterson. It's going to be published by Little Brown, and it's also coming out in April. Then there's The House of Hidden Meanings by RuPaul. It's going to be published by Day Street Books, and it's coming out in March. And finally, The Search Party by Hannah Rochelle. It's going to be published by Atria Books. It's a division of Simon & Schuster, and it's coming out this month.
And how can we find you, Mr. Nulman?
Well, wearing my reading robe with a cup of nice hot chocolate with a new book, or else you can find me in the Montreal Times, mtltimes.ca, or my blog, stuartnulmansgrapevine.wordpress.com.
Thank you very much, Stu.
It'll be a good 2024 book-wise, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Stuart Nulman with another edition of Book Banter here on the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder.
The Stuff File.
And we're just about a racetrack for this edition of the Stuff File program. We have a few more Stuff File news stories to share with you. And, of course, there is an idiot of the day. 56-year-old Dempsey Hadley allegedly shoplifted cigarettes from a Wawa store in Deltona, Florida, and faces charges of petty theft and fleeing law enforcement, plus 3 counts of attempted murder of a law enforcement officer. According to Volusia Sheriff Mike Chitwood, deputies tried to pull Hadley over, but he didn't comply. After a low-speed chase to his home, Hadley barricaded himself in his car. He allegedly shot at the responding SWAT team, and after a gun battle, Chitwood says, he tells us to contact President Biden because the president is going to pardon him for everything that he did. Hadley then went into his garage where, according to his family, he had more ammunition and rifles. That's when the inferno started. Hadley allegedly set multiple fires inside his house. Deputies were finally able to apprehend him and take him for medical care, presumably a checkup from the neck up, and then they took him to jail. We're still waiting for that call from the president. So, all of this started with shoplifting cigarettes, huh? Well, where there's smokes, there's fire. 3 robbers at a check-cashing business in Commerce City, Colorado, planned the caper well and fled with the loot before police could arrive. There was just one problem with their plan. They left their getaway car unattended, and it was stolen during the few minutes they were inside. That delayed the robbers long enough for the cops to arrive, and they chased after the 3 men, capturing 2. Police say the robbers likely had stolen the car themselves. Said police, "We are relieved no one was injured." Well, physical injuries, no. Severe injuries to the robbers' egos, one can hope. A woman who allegedly stole a delivery truck at a 7-Eleven in Carlingford, Australia, likely thought there was money in the vehicle. Little did she know that its cargo was only valuable to those with a sweet tooth. In the early morning, a delivery driver made a quick pit stop at a 7-Eleven. That's when security cameras captured a woman climbing into the truck and driving off. The truck contained 10,000 Krispy Kreme donuts that were originally destined for shops in Newcastle. New South Wales police, whom were likely disappointed they had nothing to consume with their coffee, appealed to the public on the whereabouts of the stolen vehicle. A Krispy Kreme spokesperson said in the news release that the company was working hard to replace the 10,000 stolen donuts. The alleged thief is described as being in her early 30s with long black or brown hair. It's unknown whether she had remnants of glaze or powdered sugar on her lips. Too bad, so sad. She was looking for money, but got the wrong dough. Anyway, boys and girls, it's that moment you've all been waiting for. It's time now for the Idiot of the Day.
And now it's time for the strange things adults do. This Stuff File presents the Idiot of the Day.
We're starting out a brand new year, but already we have some of the same old idiots that we've had to deal with more and more because of social media. 29-year-old Orlando Henderson, a bank employee in Charlotte, North Carolina, allegedly stole $88,000 from a bank vault, then, in a boneheaded move, posed with stacks of cold, hard cash in photos on his Facebook and Instagram pages. Henderson stole money from bank customers, on 18 different occasions in the past year. The stolen money was then allegedly deposited at an ATM machine near the bank he worked at. However, in several posts on social media between July and August last year, Henderson can be seen holding large stacks of cash. He also allegedly committed loan fraud in connection with the purchase of a luxury automobile. The FBI busted Henderson on December the 4th in San Diego after he allegedly dropped $20,000 on a down payment for a Mercedes-Benz vehicle. Henderson was hit with dozens of charges, including 19 counts of theft, 12 counts of making false entries, and 2 counts of financial institution fraud. If convicted, the false entry charges each have a maximum 30-year prison sentence and $1 million in fines, while the money laundering charges have a 10-year prison term and $250,000 in fines. Now, why? Oh, why? If you're stealing thousands of dollars from a bank, then why would you flaunt said cash on your own social media accounts? One reason, and one reason only. You're an idiot!
Gee, I'm only a kid, but even I know you're an idiot.
And that's it for this edition of the Stuff File program, number 0750. Hope you enjoyed it. The website is thestuffile.com, and once again, stuff is spelled S-T-U-P-H, where you'll find information and links on all of our guests by going to the weekly Stuff File page. Just look for the corresponding program number, and once again, that's 0750. Email me at peter@thestuffile.com. You can also find me on Facebook, Spoutable, Post, Mastodon, and Blue Sky as PA Holder. Check us out on patreon.com, or you can become a patron of the program. Hope to see you back here for our next show on the air, online, or as a download. We're coming to you from everywhere, including KDXRadio.com, TrueTalkRadio.com, over the air on World FM in New Zealand, WLSL-LP-FM in Dade City, Florida, KZZH-LP-FM in Eureka, California, CKUW-FM in Winnipeg, CFMU in Hamilton, CKLU in Sudbury, Local 107.3 FM in St. John, CHSR in Fredericton, and also streaming on just about any streaming service your little heart desires. That's it. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder, a presentation of Flying Fish Communications. Guests of the Stuff File program stay at their own homes.
Trust me, I'm the voice for this program. I know there's no budget for accommodations. I'm reading this on a futon.